Hey guys, SomethingStitches here. Today I'm going to be taking you through my process for creating this custom wedding celebration hoop. From initial design to stitching it all, it took about 10 working hours total, so I'm going to take you through all of the steps. So to get started, I opened up Procreate on my iPad, just because I don't like Photoshop on mobile. I attempted to create a circle to the best of my ability, which kind of looks bad, but it's a circle. I pulled this floral element from their wedding invitation, and the couple had a French theme for their wedding, so I knew saying we to each other was a big part of it, and I wanted that to be the main focus of my embroidery. So I added we as well as the couple's names and wedding date in this cute little font. The wedding was also vaguely nautical themed. They had these cute little clams and oysters on their wedding logo as well, which I knew I just had to pull for my embroidery. And from there, I just continued designing the floral patterns. I don't really have many tips about how I design the florals. I just kind of went with what I thought would look good. While I continue designing these florals, I just want to touch on one mistake that I made here, which was making the word we way too thick. I print out my embroidery patterns on fabric, and this is going to be a big old mess, and you'll see that I actually change up the thickness of this font later on in the video, so don't use thick lines. Thanks. And once I'm done designing this in Procreate, I actually have to prep this in Photoshop on my desktop computer to be printed. I bring in my Procreate design with a transparent background into Photoshop, and I have another Photoshop document that is 8.5 by 11, which is the size of the paper that I use to print on my fabric. I know that I'm going to use a 6-inch hoop for this, so I make a 6-inch ellipse. I am very aware that my screen recording quality is not amazing, but anyway, I bring in my design into that 6-inch ellipse just to make sure that it will fit into my hoop when printed. And here's the shocking tip: I never print with that ellipse on, or else you will have a random circle printed on your fabric and it will look awful. Okay, so we're ready to print, but this is how I prep my fabric to print on first. What? Anyway, for this I'm going to be using just a regular sheet of sticker paper, 8.5 by 11, and this cool little rotary scissor that I have. And on my cutting mat, I'm going to use this white Kona cotton fabric and cut it down to the size of the sticker paper, like so. And as you can see, it's absolutely important that you grip the paper like your life depends on it. Perfect! Now to get that fabric onto the sticker paper, you take the fabric and you roll it up real tight, like so. Still going. Now take your sticker paper and speaks for itself. And you're gonna take your roll of fabric and slowly and carefully, making sure there are no bubbles, press it onto the sticker paper. So I use a LaserJet printer to print all of my embroidery patterns onto the fabric before I embroider them. The end result looks just so much neater. Just a word of warning, it will mess up your printer. I've only been printing onto fabric for about a year, but you can see those globs of ink that just come out on the side of everything I print now. It's not good for your printer to do this. Now you get to do this satisfying thing all over again. Yeah! And now that we have put this fabric that is definitely the same as before into the hoop, we're going to trim off that excess fabric. And after choosing my color palette, which contains a lot of blues and soft greens to stick to that nautical theme, I think we're ready to start stitching. Now here comes the fun, satisfying part. I'm going to play most of this in a time lapse, but I'm going to just periodically explain what I'm doing. I'm starting off in a satin stitch on the word we, just because that now has the lightest amount of ink and I don't want it to fade as I touch the hoop. Also, I'm going to drop links to tutorials that I use for these stitches down in the description box, so check it out if you want to learn how to do this yourself. I'm going to use a basic backstitch on the names of the couple and the wedding date. I filled in the petals of the big flowers using a satin stitch. Why can't I talk today? At least I can embroider. And I will be using French knots to fill the middle of my big flowers. And one of the most useful stitches to learn is this leaf stitch. I think it makes just flawless looking leaves. They're so quick to do, and they're really good at filling a bunch of space on your canvas if you're trying to, get something done quickly. And my favorite floral stitch to do is these pinwheel roses. The reason they're my favorite is because they're so quick and very satisfying to make. You just make kind of a 5-pointed star with your thread and then bring your thread over and under, kind of like weaving, to make these little flowers. And that looks about done. So again, here's the final product. It took about 10 working hours from design to stitching it all, and I'm really happy with how this came out. The bride and groom loved it themselves, so I'd really consider this a success.